We're just going to talk loud enough. Good. Welcome aboard, ladies and gentlemen. Just wrapped up player interviews here at Kinder High School. Now I get to sit down with the head man himself, good friend, Coach Justin Reed. Coach, thank you for the opportunity. Phenomenal group that I just got to talk to. Your thoughts on the players' interviews, how they represented your program. Coach, special.
Yeah, I think they represented with a lot of maturity, a lot of class, and one of the things when it gets to this time of year and these interviews start coming up, I try to choose seniors, obviously, to do those interviews. And one of the things I use to pare it down, who I'm going to invite is our summer workouts, who's made the most. And I got ready to look at it this year, and I couldn't. They had made all their workouts, all of them. So it was really one of the big starts. I said, you know what, let's let them all come. I think they'll all do a good job. And just super proud of them and thankful that they were black and gold.
That's it. Coach, we're heading into year 3 as the head man here.
Yeah,
every year is different. How have you grown as a coach?
Well, I think growth comes with failure, and I think a lot of the growth that I've had as a coach has been a result of things that maybe I screwed up along the way. I would say I've kind of had a philosophical change this offseason of how I view the game of football, and excited to see if the changes we made this offseason, if they're beneficial to us in the fall. I think they're going to be. I think maybe some of the things that I emphasized 2-3 years ago, or when I first took over, maybe not. I've kind of shifted my thought process to kind of place some other aspects of the program at the forefront. And there's too many to count. I can't just sit here and say the one thing that has changed or the 2 things that's changed. I think it's been growth through failure, and I think failure is obviously always our greatest teacher. So.
You watched this year's senior class grow up as sophomores when you first taken over. Talk to me about how special that group actually is.
Yeah, you got to talk to them for the past hour or so they're just all great kids, and I say this about them often. I think I'm dreading the day that every single one of those guys is done playing here, because I'm going to miss every one of them. And the number one thing that they do, and they brought this word up a lot in their interview just a while ago, is they're all consistent. You know what you're going to get out of them. They're the same kid every day. It's a very basic thing, but they show up every day. Anytime I send a text out or something in the band and say, hey, we're doing this, let's move it to this time or whatever, they're always there, they're always on time, and they show up for their teammates and their coaches.
Let's go back down to last year. I know you want to focus on this year, but I do have to ask you, big Week 10 win for the district title. Describe that night, first district title, as the head coach here.
Yeah, that was, district titles are not quite as important now, with the world of PowerPoints and stuff like that, but
right.
You still, you enjoy getting the opportunity to play in a game that means something a little bit more, and that's what it was that night. And, we knew we were playing a good team. Avoyelles is just a tough, hard-nosed, physical football team. They're well coached, and we knew it was going to be a battle. And I would say that night we faced as much adversity as any other week
right.
Throughout the season. And to see our kids respond there at the end, which looking back on it, the Vols had just as much chance to win the game as we did. We just made a couple plays there in the last couple minutes that they didn't make, and it was a special night. It meant a lot to, I feel like, kind of galvanized our group a little bit. Everybody was, pulling for the success of the person next to them, and I think to be able to reap those benefits of winning a district championship was something special, and probably a confidence boost going into the playoffs.
Playoff brackets are released. You earned a 4 seed. Your bye week approach, would you do something differently if you're in the same situation this year? And are you a fan of the bye week, or you rather play if you got momentum going into the playoffs?
That's probably something that probably changes year to year. I felt like it came at a good time for us this past year because it was such an emotionally charged game. Week 10 kind of gave us a second to catch our breath, and we didn't do much that bye week. We probably weren't on the field for more than 45 minutes to an hour at a time that week. We didn't necessarily focus on game planning any specific opponent. We didn't know who we were going to play. We just worked on a couple of things that we felt like we needed to work on and get better at. And I think what I liked about it was I felt like whenever we did get to that next week and we played Westlake, I felt like we really had our legs under us, and I think we were able to play fast that night, and so it's tough to say. If it were a situation where, say, we played a Week 10 game and it wasn't a competitive game, you'd like to probably turn around and play again. But with the way last year shook out, I think it was good for us to get that bye.
You go to round 2 right here at home, Southwest Louisiana, second round matchup with Westlake, a team that you saw earlier in the season. Find out, that's a type of deal where you find out where you're at, and now you get them down in round 2. Coach, let's talk about that night. And was John C. Buck rolling that night?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it always is. But when the brackets came out, honestly, not super thrilled with the draw because we had played them in the scrimmage, and they got after us pretty good, and we knew, throughout most of the season, they were up there at the top. They were in the top 4, of the seeding.
I think
they're number 1 for a while, from what I remember. So, and we knew they were very explosive on offense. They had a collegiate wide receiver out there. They had a quarterback that could spin it and throw it all over the field. And we knew defensively they were going to give us some different looks that we hadn't seen. So not super thrilled, like I said, about the matchup. But I think with the bye week, getting our legs under us, we had a really good week of practice leading up to the game. And then, the energy from the crowd was kind of a difference maker to me in the second half of that game.
Quarterfinal week, I asked the guys about this. Your biggest takeaways from the night, and how special was it to spend Thanksgiving week with your team and family and everything?
No, it was awesome. It was great. It was the first time I got to experience playing at home on Thanksgiving. I had done it one time before, I think in 2019, we played at Faraday, but it wasn't at home, so that was kind of that was a special deal. I was glad that our seniors got to experience that before they finished their career here. I had a lot of guys who were really deserving of that opportunity. And as far as what we learned, again, like I said earlier, failure is to me, failure is the best teacher. So the way we were kind of physically dominated in the probably the end of the second quarter on the rest of that game, it led us to kind of look in the mirror going into the offseason and try to figure out some things we could do to close that gap between us, because ultimately we want to be up there with the top 4 or 5 teams in our class, the St. James, the Sterlingtons, the Union Parishes, all those teams, and we had to figure out what's the best way for us to close that gap. And I think hopefully some of the answers we came up with are going to be beneficial for us this fall.
Our kids that go on to play other sports in this program, multi-sport athletes that you get to see every day. But how soon did you get back to work knowing that you might not see some of these faces for a while?
Yeah, so we got done with that quarterfinal game. And then I believe we had 2 weeks of school before we went on our Christmas break. And I had decided, throughout the season that I was going to make some pretty significant changes to our off season. And so basically we used those first 2 weeks before Christmas to kind of troubleshoot a couple things that we wanted to do and how we wanted to do them. And then we came back from Christmas break and day 1 hit the ground running and started working on some things I felt like we needed to work on.
What role have your upper class or returning starters played in setting the tone for this season?
I think, one thing that is different this offseason than the past 2 years that I've been the head coach is the familiarity with both sides of the ball, offense and defense. It's the same scheme that we finished a year in on offense and the same scheme that we implemented going into last year on defense. So I think they were comfortable with everything we were doing schematically, and then a lot of them, this was their third year with me in the offseason. So regardless of the tweaks we made, they know the intent that I require of them every day. And so they, are able to kind of, now that, this is their third time doing it, set a good example. And, I just think that their comfort level with me and the systems that we run on offense and defense allowed us to not have to implement new stuff, but to get better at the things that we're already doing. And I think that was a major, major advantage for us.
Coach, at this time, if you can introduce your 2025 coaching staff.
Okay, yeah, so we have on the defensive side of the ball, Coach Jeremy Manuel, coaches our linebackers. He's been coaching a long time. He was on staff, a young coach, but was on staff when I was in high school. But he coaches our linebackers. Coach Bo Maggio, he coaches our DBs, our defensive backs, and those two guys call the defense on Friday nights kind of together. We have also a new coach on staff this year that most people in Kendall are familiar with, Joey McNeely. Played collegiately at several different places. He's coaching our D-line for us. Coach Kay Lafargue is our middle school coach. He's also going to be our special teams coordinator this year, handling a lot of the special team stuff we do. We like to do some different things in that aspect of the game, so he'll kind of be spearheading that effort. And then on the offensive side, we got Coach Zach Monto, coaches the offensive line. Coach Drew Scully is our wide receivers coach, and then Coach Dylan David is he's our head baseball coach, and also coaches our running backs for us. So that's the crew right there.
Okay. How do you celebrate small wins to keep the morale and focus high?
Well, I think that starts with having a good plan each week and having an idea that we want our kids to have an idea of what to expect each Monday, each Tuesday, each Wednesday. So when they know what to expect going into each day, that gives them the opportunity to attack each day with aggression and consistency. And as far as small wins, I think just being consistent every day, being aggressive every day, and having the best Monday you can have, the best Tuesday you can have, the best Wednesday you can have, that leads us up into being prepared on Friday night. And I think those are the small victories that we kind of, I guess if you would say, look at it throughout the season and throughout the week. That would be one way of looking at it. Okay.
How rewarding is it when it clicks for a player on a Friday night?
Yeah, it's great. One of the things that I love as being a coach is seeing kids gain confidence, whether that's in the weight room, whether that's by increasing their 10-meter fly time or increasing a bench or whatever, bench weight, whatever it may be. Just to see kids gain confidence is one of the reasons I do what I do, is one of the reasons I like to coach. So, yeah, it's rewarding. As coaches, we always just want to get the best out of each student athlete, regardless if that means playing time, success on the field, or whatever. But yeah, to see guys have a clip for them and to gain that confidence, I feel like that confidence can bleed over to different aspects of their life, and that's part of the reason why I do what I do.
How do you get your players to understand not just what to do, but why they are doing it?
I would say, and just like any other coach, and this isn't any kind of groundbreaking information, but we always start with the why before we introduce something new. So whether that means adjusting a scheme and showing the week before where we tried doing it this way and we screwed it up or it didn't work. So why did it not work? Let's talk about why it didn't work. So let's talk about what our answer can be to why it didn't work. So I think as a coach, if you always start with the why, I think that's the best place to start when introducing something new or teaching something new. And there's that old saying that it doesn't matter what the coach knows; it's all about what the players know. Because I'm not going to be taking a snap at all this fall. It's going to be about what our guys know on offense and defense. And I think starting with the why and all that is the best way to prepare them so they can have answers on Friday nights.
Coach, do you build your scheme around your players or make players fit your system?
You know, that's kind of a loaded question, I would say. I think obviously year to year things are going to be different, but I do think that you have to have a system. I don't think you can be a team that is split back one year, spread the next year, and then flex bone the year after that. I think you have to have a system, and you can. I think ideally you want a system, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, that you can adjust year to year depending on the type of kids you have. Not necessarily can the whole system, but maybe make adjustments within the system to get the best out of the ones you have. Because if you don't have a system, then it's hard to determine what you're working for in the offseason. You know, so I think I'm very comfortable with the system we have on both sides of the ball this year, and that's why obviously there's question marks going into the year, but I feel like we're going to be able to answer those relatively quickly because we all, as coaches, see the game through the same lens and are able to look at each side of the ball and understand that hey, we might be able to do this a little better than we did last year, so we make minor adjustments here and there. So I think you have to have a system, but it's got to be one that's adjustable.
How important is it for your offensive line to be disciplined and smart, not just physical?
Yeah, I think that's the number one question going into the season is our offensive line to me. It's not about talent or size or strength up front because I think we'll be bigger and stronger than we were, since I've been here, you know, back in 2019. But it's all going to be about mentally learning how to rely on one another and communicate with one another, you know, and then gaining that confidence together. Now, on our offensive line, it is 4 new starters on the offensive line, but it's guys who have played football for us. You know? 2 of them played on the O-line last year. Some Lee, who was in here earlier, he's played on the D-line the past 2 years, and you know, obviously Monroe's a returning starter. So there's just kind of that one spot of true inexperience that we're trying to figure out before we get going in the scrimmage. So I think mentally is that's the number one question for me is how our offensive line develops and gains that confidence.
Returning quarterback, what goes into the process of teaching him pre and post snap read? That's kind of
we're a little different. We don't do without getting too much into it. We don't have a ton of post snap. I'd say 95% of the time he knows where the ball's going before it's snapped. So, but like I said, I'm not going to get into all that. Right. But I think he's done a really good job this offseason at understanding the decisions that we want him to make, and not necessarily just the decisions, but situationally too. Whether it's an RPO or something like that, you know, and if we have an automatic built into a run play on a 3rd and 2, we probably want you to hand the ball, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, Isaiah's he's got a good grasp of everything, and you know, having a guy like that who can play the quarterback position the way he does makes me look like a really good coach. And I promise you, what we do is not very complicated. So, you know, I think he's got a grasp on all that.
How much freedom do you give your players to make adjustments on the field?
A lot. Probably, I would say, with the exception of a couple schools in the state, I don't think there are many other schools who give their kids as much freedom as we do, whether it be in the passing game on offense, whether it be pre-snap decisions by the quarterback, whether it be our blitz and coverage calls by our linebackers and secondary. A lot of that, I'd say 90% of the time, you know, the play call, to me, what we send in defensively or offensively is just a suggestion, you know, and they have the freedom to adjust maybe a route post-snap or decide whether or not we're going to hand the ball off or throw it pre-snap, or decide are we sending 2 backers or 1 backer, or are we playing 2 down 3 deep or 3 down 2 deep, whatever, you know, whatever the formation and the situation calls for. But a lot of those decisions are made by our players on the field.
What's something people outside the program might not understand about the process you're building here?
You know, I think thankfully we live in a community that they support our program a lot, so they understand a lot about what goes on you know, on a day-to-day basis in our program, and hopefully our players have a relationship with their parents where they go home and talk to them about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. But I think the number one thing, and look, it's like this everywhere. It's not just in kinder, but I think, maybe sometimes what gets lost is the amount of love that our coaches have for our players, regardless of how many touchdowns they score, tackles they make. We love every single kid in our program, and I think we pour into them every day. Not just myself, but our assistant coaches as well. And I think that's something that maybe sometimes in the face of adversity gets lost. Whether it's you lose a couple games or something like that. But yeah, I think our coaches we really love our players, and we pour into them every day.
Coach, what's the biggest challenge your schedule brings this year?
Well, I think going into this season, I feel like we have a chance to be an improved football team, but sometimes it doesn't always work out like that. And I feel like it's the same way for all 10 of our opponents. Right out the gate, you got Welsh, Iota, Rose Pine, Eunice, Logansport, South Woolgard. I mean, there's really no off week there, And then you get into our district, which is going to be some older teams this year. A lot of them were younger last year, the Odells, and Boyles is always going to be tough. And my guess is that Port Barry and Menor will be improved as well. So I think the biggest question mark is always, did you do enough to improve, to maintain that gap you had over another team, or to maintain that gap you were trying to keep up with another team? So that's the biggest question mark. Is did we do enough this offseason to keep us in a position to have another successful regular season and put us in position for the playoffs like we did last year?
What do you want to see from your team when you guys meet up with Westlake?
I think, just consistency, and that's a big word that I know they were saying it a lot earlier, and something that we really believe in is just being consistent in your work, being consistent in your attitude, and not riding the roller coaster, not going up and down when it's a bad play or a good play, and just staying level-headed. And kind of another thing they talked about was communication, making sure that we're on the same page, and just kind of, I want to make sure that we have an understanding of our base offense and our base defense. We'll be pretty vanilla that night, and I just want to see the guys get into the football on defense, and I want to see us offensively playing with some tempo and getting a lot of snaps in.
Your biggest focus heading into week 1, what is it?
I would say protect the football. I think if you look at the common denominator in the games that we've lost over the past couple of years has been turnovers. And I think that is one thing offensively that we're going to have to clean up this coming season, because the Avoyelles game and Westlake game were probably 2 of our bigger wins last year, but we lost the turnover battle in both of those games pretty handily. So we can't do that again and expect to win big games. So, and then week 1's going to be a big game. It always is with Welsh. So we just got to make sure to protect the football on offense and get to the ball on defense.
Your ideal tempo of a game, what do you like?
Fast. We want to start fast. We want to be aggressive. Defensively, we want to overwhelm our opponent with speed, and on offense, we want to get as many snaps in as possible. So, yeah, whether that means I wouldn't love a shootout. I don't love that, but I do want the tempo of the game to be one that's pretty up tempo.
What do you look for on the sideline to know if your players are locked in that night?
Well, I think you figure that out throughout the week, but we've never had really an issue with our guys being locked in, and I think a lot of that comes from the amount of work they put in the offseason throughout the week, and they know that they can rely on the person next to them, and that hopefully all 11 are going to do their job, and whenever you have that confidence that the person next to you is going to do your job, I think it's very easy to be locked in. When you're not locked in, it's because you're not confident in what you're doing, and you're questioning things, and we try to eliminate that clutter as much as possible.
Coach, what does a prepared team look like in your eyes beyond just knowing the plays that's going to be called?
Well, I think the ability to maintain, again, there's the word again, maintain consistency and aggression throughout the course of 4 quarters, and not to again, ride the roller coaster, not to be too down whenever we have a bad play or be too high whenever we have a good play. I think just for those guys to be able to physically hold up for 4 quarters and mentally stay locked in enough to be consistent. I think that's kind of what we're looking for on a Friday night.
What small details in preparation make a big difference on a Friday night?
That's another thing that kind of varies week to week, in my opinion, depending on whatever the offense you're facing or the defensive scheme you're facing. But we try to do a good job as coaches of giving our team, whether it's defense side of the ball, offense side of the ball, something to really lock in on that is going to kind of give us the true identity of our opponent. And again, like I said, that changes week to week, but that's something that, once we identify that and kind of what we build a game plan around, hopefully by Thursday morning when we do our last walkthrough, our guys are pretty keyed into what to expect on Friday night.
How do you prepare your team to respond when teams throw something unexpected at you on Friday night?
I think mentally, trying to focus on controlling what we can control. One of the things we talk about a lot is playing each play and surrendering the outcome. And what that means is, at the end of the day, in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, even in the fourth quarter, a lot of times we can't control what the final score is going to be. So and the only way to put yourself in a position to be able to control that final score is by playing each play to the best of your ability. And I think we have a bunch of guys who bought into that. I think we do a pretty good job, or they do a pretty good job of taking it one play at a time. And I know that sounds cliche, coach speak, but it really is the truth. Being down or upset about a mistake you made in the past is going to help you absolutely none on the next play. So we got to move forward, surrender the outcome, and just keep playing each play.
What separates a good team from a great one in those final minutes?
I think in high school football, a lot of times it comes down to who makes the least amount of mistakes. Because we're not perfect. We got guys who we don't get as much time with them in practice as maybe a bigger school or even like the collegiate level or something like that. So the reps are limited a lot of times. So in the fourth quarter, you want to lean on those guys who you have identified as your guys, your go-to guys, and it's about eliminating mistakes, especially mental mistakes in big situations. A lot of times mental mistakes come in big situations because they're worried about the impact or the magnitude of what would happen if they fail. And we just try to talk to our guys all the time about, hey, you're going to fail many, many times, whether it's a game, season, your career. So let's just focus on moving on to the next play, eliminating clutter, playing the next play to the best of your ability. And, a lot of times that's going to eliminate the mistakes in crucial situations. You eliminate mistakes in crucial situations, you got a better chance of winning the game.
You had a youth camp not too long ago?
We didn't do one this summer.
Not this summer?
Not this summer. No, we couldn't get everything lined out for that, but hoping to come back with that next summer.
Okay, so keep a lookout on that
Yep.
for next year.
Yep.
Okay. How about fundraisers that will be happening? Anything to talk about in that nature?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously that's part of it. Fundraisers, you don't like necessarily asking for money, but it costs a lot of money to run a football program.
Right.
It costs a lot of money to dress out a high school athlete on the sidelines on Friday nights. So we do have to make an attempt to raise money. We had a big fundraiser that we finished up right as we went into the summer with our Money Dolly fundraiser. We did well on that. And then the big thing that's coming up now is our stadium signs. So we're going to be reaching out in the next week or so to a lot of the local businesses and people who purchased stadium signs in the past, and we'll be looking to renew this year.
Okay. Any new upgrades to talk about? Anything in store?
No, not really. Just we tweaked a couple things here and there. So there's nothing new major going on. Just trying to put our head down and getting ready for week 1.
What about the Booster Club here? Would you like to mention them?
Yeah, the Booster Club does a great job with with raising funds to help not just football, but they do a great job helping out all sports at Kinder High School. And anytime you're in need, if you got a big expense coming up, and they're always willing to help with that. And we're very thankful to have those people behind us every step of the way, whether it's football, basketball, baseball. There's many things around the school and around our athletic facility that they've purchased for us to just directly benefit our student athletes.
The growth of Kinder athletics in your 3 years here, you got a lot of great coaches on campus.
Oh, definitely. We, I think last year was a pretty successful year all the way across the board. And success in other sports, it bleeds over. Once you get that confidence and, say, I feel like winning football games helped with our boys basketball team being able to go to French Settlement first round of playoffs and win a game against a really good basketball team at their place. So that was awesome. Our girls basketball has been super successful the past couple of years, and that bleeds over into softball. And our baseball program has made the playoffs. Shoot, I don't even know how many years in a row. So I feel like the more success one sport has, it kind of bleeds over into the next, and we're hoping to keep that thing going within the next couple of years.
Year 3, do you feel your players understand the why behind the X's and O's now?
I think so. I think they understand what the overall vision of our program is, and we talk to them about it a lot, about who we want to be as a football program. And I think at the end of the day, we want our football. Whenever you have our football team on the schedule, we want it to be an uncomfortable week for you, whether that's through your having to prepare for maybe an offense or a defense that you haven't necessarily seen a whole lot, or even special teams. At the end of the day, we try to be a little different in the things that we do. And I think, all our coaches have bought into that, our players have bought into that, and ultimately we feel like if it could be an uncomfortable week of preparation for our opponent, that's only going to help us whenever we get under the lights on Friday night. So I think our kids understand that. They know that I'm not scared to change stuff, maybe to a fault sometimes. So and I think they welcome that. And again, we try to do stuff a little bit different to hopefully give us that advantage whenever the ball's kicked off.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Coach. A lot of guys in the off season this summer have earned a title.
Yeah, the Cat of the Week.
The Cat of the Week. Talk to me about how one player or multiple players earn that after the week's over with.
Yeah, so the Cat of the Week, it stands for consistent, aggressive, and tough. And those are kind of 3 things we look for in a football player. And during the school year, it's going to depend on their attendance at school, depend on being on time, having the things they need to have for their workout, having the correct attire on, that kind of stuff. And then being able to improve on something maybe that they were kind of battling, up until that week or whatever. Not necessarily about the guy who lifted the most or ran the fastest. It's just kind of a guy who we feel like deserves recognition for steps and strides that they've made and the things that they've been doing. And I think we had a good outcome this year with all that. The kids, they really enjoy. I think that's one of the highlights of their week is we're naming Cat of the Week, and we give them a T-shirt. And our administration allows us, which we're very thankful for, is they allow our athletes or students in general at our school to wear any shirt affiliated with a Kinder High School program to school any day. So whenever we are able to recognize them by getting a T-shirt, they can wear it to school the rest of that day. They can wear it whenever they want, and that's something I think they enjoy, and we're going to keep that going here these next couple of years. The title might change, but the reward is kind of still the same.
Who helped shape your own leadership style, and how do you pass that down to the guys in the program?
Yeah, I think fortunate for me, I played under and worked with some really good coaches along the way. Even like Coach Manuel on our staff, I played under him, now coaching with him. Jeff Wainwright was the head coach at Kinder for 10 years. I played under him, and then coached with him for a year in Kinder, and then coached under him for a year, for 6 years at Sulphur. And then coming back to Kinder with Coach Fusilier and Coach Pickle and Coach James Marcantel, just a bunch of guys that with a ton of experience that I was fortunate enough to be around, and I kind of pick and choose maybe the things that that I like or dislike from their leadership style or whatever it may be, and then I'm almost like a compulsive reader, and I'm always reading books about leadership and articles and things like that, which just trying to do my best to be able to get the most out of our kids, because I think that's the number one thing is if we can get the most out of them, then we can sleep well at night.
What lessons do you hope your players carry with them long after the pads come off?
I think one of the things is, again, consistency, being someone who shows up to work every day, someone who doesn't complain, someone who can handle when things are not going well, someone who can stand up and be a man and face tough situations head on and make tough decisions and have hard conversations with people, and all those things that we have to do in our society these days. And I hope they feel like, as a coach, I'm always honest with them and I tell them the truth, whether they want to hear it or not. And I think those are all traits of being a man and having your own family one day and being able to hold down a career and a job and provide for your family and all those things. And hopefully, those are lessons that they learn from playing in our program.
Your approach at halftime, is it more tactical changes or emotional reset?
I think it depends on what's required at that halftime. Sometimes it needs to be calm and tactical. Sometimes it's not so calm and not so tactical. It just kind of depends on how the first half's going and what I feel like we need going into the second half.
Watched you guys a year ago, and really stood out to me. You had a finish mentality. How do you install that mindset into your kids?
I think that's one of those things that, that's something everybody wants to be able to do, is to finish a 4-quarter game. But, I think a lot of that is instilled in them before me, probably from the tradition of this program, from their parents or whatever it may be, because, at the end of the day, a lot of times when it gets down to a close game in the fourth quarter, we want to win that game, not for necessarily ourselves, but for maybe the person next to us or the teams that played before us. And you don't want to be known as that team that, choked or lost a game in the fourth quarter when it really mattered. And, I just feel like our kids, it's kind of bred into them. When it gets to be a tough game or a tight game in the fourth quarter, you're going to have to beat us because we're going to make you earn it, and we're going to do everything we can to come out on top. And I feel like, again, that's just something that's instilled in them just from wearing black and gold.
Yeah. When we talk about position groups on this team, would you go in the direction of the offensive line that has to take the biggest leap this offseason, or would you go elsewhere?
Well, I think offensive line is an obvious question mark if you're looking at our team. I mean, I think we have some guys more than capable of answering those questions, but they still got to go out and do it. Another thing I would like to see is some depth at the running back position. I feel pretty good about John, who was in here earlier. He had some carries last year and was an explosive runner for us. Probably should have gotten more carries, to be honest with you, but we had like a 3-year starter there in front of him, so it's going to be his turn. But like he said, he's going to be playing both sides of the ball, so we're going to need some depth there. And there's a couple guys that I feel like can kind of take the reins of that spot. But I'm just excited to see who steps up and who doesn't.
How do you avoid over-adjusting and just stick to your identity?
Well, we just try to fix our problems through our process, I guess you could say. You're not going to see us at halftime of a game drawing up any new plays or anything like that. We're not going to be drawing up a new defense. We're going to do what we're going to do, and we're going to fix our mistakes by doing what we do better. And that's one thing that we talk to our kids about all the time, because just like you were talking about earlier, fourth quarter football games, if we're on offense, we're going to call our same 2 to 3 run plays and our same 2 to 3 pass plays. I mean, that's what we do, and that's what we're going to lean on in crucial situations. So there's no point in trying to, reinvent the wheel in a situation when you're faced with adversity. When we're faced with adversity, we're going to just do what we do just a little bit better.
What's the most difficult thing to overcome in a season Is it injuries? Is it outside noise? Is it worrying about grade? What's the most difficult thing?
Well, I mean, obviously sometimes it can be injuries. You know, we've been fortunate enough the past couple of years to not really overtax our players, where we've had a lot of soft tissue injuries, which is, you know, what you get from maybe too much of a workload throughout the weekend leading up into a game. So I think we've kind of reached a pretty good balance with that. I would say for me, it's overcoming, I guess, the monotony of the middle of the season. You know, your week 4, 5, 6, 7, whenever it's like the same thing every Monday, same thing every Tuesday and Wednesday. Can you overcome that obstacle and get better that day? Because sometimes it's very easy just to show up on a Tuesday and go through the motions just because you know exactly what to expect. We want our guys to know what to expect, but we need them to do it to the best of their ability every day.
Okay. When we're on the practice field, are you a coach who likes high intensity reps or longer teaching periods?
Yeah, I think it, again, depends on the day. Mondays are going to be a little slower for us. Tuesday is a day that we're going to really be focusing on our opponent. Monday is more kind of about us and corrections from the week before. Tuesday we're focused on our opponent. So the one real high intensity day with contact is Wednesday. And we're going to do a red zone period. We'll do all our special teams, a lot of transitions on and off. So I would say Monday and Tuesday, it's more teaching. Maybe the first half of the Tuesday practice, and then the second half of Tuesday practice into Wednesday, we want to crank up the intensity and kind of get the pads popping a little bit and play with some physicality and some intent and making sure we got all our ducks in a row.
Describe an unsung hero and who could take on that role this year.
Thankfully, I feel like there's about 4 names that just popped into my head, but I just narrowed down to 2, one on offense, one on defense. I think offensively, a guy that got a little bit of more playing time towards the end of the year that didn't have much throughout the year, and his journey has been, he's had to be resilient throughout his high school career, and he's had a journey maybe not that he envisioned, but it's Peyton Simeon. He was in here earlier. Peyton is just a super consistent kid, a very smooth athlete. He was a quarterback his freshman, sophomore year. He wanted to go down that road and then kind of realized that maybe that wasn't going to be his fastest path to the field. So he moved to wide receiver full-time last year and just kind of had to learn to play the position. And the light bulb kind of came on for him towards the end of the year. He had to step up and play a lot in that playoff win against Westlake and had 4 or 5 big catches for us. He's had a great summer, and I think he's going to have a really, really good year for us at wide receiver. And then defensively, I would say, well, there's 2 guys. I think one guy that just does not ever get enough credit for how good he is. I think he's one of the best defensive linemen in this area, and he's just a dominant player for us every Friday night. Is Eli Self. He's going to be on the D line for us, playing defensive end. He's going to be playing some running back for us. But it just doesn't get talked about a whole lot with how good of a player he is. Probably because he doesn't talk a whole lot. He doesn't say much. He just shows up and works. So that would be maybe an unsung hero, maybe pound for pound our best football player going into this season. And then at cornerback, we got a young kid, a sophomore, Gary May. Gary is not the biggest on our team, but a very fluid and explosive athlete. And he did a really good job in some man coverage situations last week in 7-on-7, and I think he's going to have a good year for us this fall.
Your biggest question mark going into the season, what is it?
We've talked about the offensive line. Just, I think in general, just, you know, we lost a lot of leadership and experience. Maybe not a lot of guys who started last year. We still returned a good amount of our production, but we lost the guys who did lose. They were leaders. They had played for 3 or 4 years. And I want to know who is going to be Noah Romero whenever things go bad. You know, who's going to be Guy Hayes whenever we're having issues up front. You know, who's going to be Landon Rice whenever we're having issues on special teams and getting everybody in the right spot. You know, because those guys, they played a lot of ball for us. And I think we'll determine who those people are pretty quickly. And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
What will success look like for this team beyond wins and losses?
think that's a tough one. Because, you know, we're so tied to wins and losses, and we try to do our best not to. And look, and they kind of said this word, and this word is going to be floating around our program a lot this year. And it's not a lot of people probably have ever heard this word before. I heard it for the first time this offseason, and the word is mudita. And that's going to kind of be our rallying cry this year for our football team. And what that means is that word is of Japanese origin, and it means to find joy in the success of others. And I think that is something that our guys have really bought into this year. And I think success outside of wins and losses is going to come from seeing our guys find joy in other people's success. Other guys maybe, you know, being just as happy when someone scores a touchdown as if I would have scored it. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's a hard thing to accomplish in our society nowadays. But I think if there's going to be a group that's going to do it, I think it's this one that we have this year.
Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. What are those conversations like right now with the defensive staff? You said they got two guys that will call it on Friday night.
Yeah.
What's those conversations like right now? What do they see? What are y'all expecting?
Yeah, I think so. Last year was our first full season in the defensive scheme that we ran, and I think this year has been more about what gave us trouble, because there were a few things that routinely gave us trouble last year, and once we identify that, like, how are we going to fix it? How are we going to make this scheme our own? And I think Coach Manuel and Coach Maggio have done a good job of that. Kind of looking at some coverages, some things maybe that we had lapsed in the season last year, and how we can fix them. And then, you know, just talking about, you know, we're a defense. It's no secret if you watch us play or watch our films. You know, we're sending pressure at almost every play, and so it's kind of about like what tweaks do we want to make to some of those pressures. And then, you know, with Joey, Coach McNeely coming on, he's done a really good job working with our D-line on some things that, you know, he's comfortable with. So we'll kind of incorporate some of that kind of stuff in our defense. So really, it's just about making sure everybody has some sense of ownership in the defense, and making sure me as a head coach allows the other coaches to incorporate some things they want to do to our scheme to give them a little more a sense of ownership in what we're doing.
How about the emphasis on special teams this offseason? I know you announced your special teams coordinator earlier. One of the guys that was sitting with us today said that he did those duties. About the importance of that leading up to a season?
Yeah, I mean, you hear coaches say all the time, but special teams can win or lose a football game, and I do feel like it's something that we take a lot of pride in. We spend a pretty good amount of time on our special teams, and like I said earlier, Coach Kate LaForge and me handling a lot of that with the help of all the other coaches. You know, it's not just really a one-person job. But for us in special teams, we want to attack it the same way we do offense and defense. We want it to be different. We want to present some things on film that are going to require our opponent to take time out of practice to work on them. And at the end of the day, we'd like to be as exotic as possible on special teams, along with still maintaining that core of a solid special teams unit. So, yeah, it's important. And again, we try to approach it the same way we do offense and defense.
What did you learn from your receiver room this summer during 7-on-7?
I think I learned that we got a lot of them that can contribute, which is good, because, you know, at our level, a lot of times your receivers are the guys turning around, playing defensive back on defense. So I feel really good about 5 to 6 of them that we could put out there, and you know, if their number's called, they'll make a play for us.
Is there a moment you can recall on why you do this?
Well, like I said earlier, I enjoy seeing kids gain confidence through sports, through athletics, whether it be in the weight room, whether it be speed driven, whether it be football driven. That's one thing. And the second thing too is, for me, I have young kids. I have an 8-year-old son, 5-year-old daughter, and an 11-month-old daughter. And I don't think there's any better place for them to grow up than in the gym or on the field. And that's part of the reason, that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy what I do. I mean, we were at that 7-on-7 tournament last week, and my son was standing behind me, behind the huddle, watching the plays, and he he's real sharp and he loves football, and I'm looking forward to the day that I get to coach him one day. But that also plays a very vital role in kind of keeps me going sometimes, because you can get run down being an athletic director and head coach, maybe not necessarily in the season, but with all the duties all the time in the off season as well. It's awesome to see my kids running around the court after a basketball game or run around the field after a baseball game, running the bases. That kind of keeps you going.
126 games we broadcasted. Kinder Loreauville 2020 quarterfinals.
Yeah,
makes #1.
That's crazy. That was a wild game. Thought we won it and lost it several different times. But it's kind of like the boys game last year. Loreauville could have won the game just as easy as we did, but our guys made a few plays there at the end that they didn't, and that was kind of the end result.
Is that one of those nights that will stick with you forever?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was. I know it was 2020 and it was supposed to be limited crowds and stuff, but that was a heck of an atmosphere that night.
Would that be your most memorable game, or do you have another one that you would like to share with us?
Well, I think the Westlake game was really nice last year to be able to beat a quality opponent for my first playoff win. But I think the most memorable to me still is 2023 week 1 beating Welsh in the first game I was the head coach.
Yeah.
I'll remember that forever. I still have the game ball from that game. So yeah, I would say those two right now stick out. Hopefully we can add another game into the conversation after this year.
What are you most excited for in 2025? What are you most proud of from this year's group?
I think, again, we made a lot of changes to how we approach the game itself this offseason. So I'm excited to see how that plays out this year. And our group is, I told you this the other day, and I'll tell you again, it's an exceptional group of seniors.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I do everything in my power for them to enjoy their season this year and to have fun, because at the end of the day, their days are coming to an end, and as we speak, as far as their football career. So I just want them to enjoy it as much as possible, and I hope I put them in the best position to be successful.
What's the message to alumni, to community as we head into 2025?
Well, I think the community can be excited. I think we've had a very successful offseason and made some improvements to some things that we wanted to improve on. And look, I'm excited about our team. I'm excited about the community support. I mean, we got I think there's a watch party going on back in my neighborhood for this show right now. So people are starving for football right now. My family and the other families on our street are probably watching it right now. So they're excited, and rightfully so. We're getting close. We got fall camp in 2 weeks, and you're starting to feel the energy start to build around it. And I'm sure you, like me, there's nothing on TV right now to watch.
Right.
I'm ready for some dang football on TV to watch. I think I've watched the LSU Ole Miss game from last year about every day for the past 3 days. It's been on ESPNU, so.
I ain't home enough. Close us out today with the quote of the day, Coach.
Modita. That's the word of the year for the Yellow Jackets. Find joy in the success of others. If we can do that, I think we'll be on the right track for a successful year.
Final words, Coach, anything?
No, thank you for doing this. I think, for our kids, this is about as big time as it gets, and it might as well have been ESPN posted up in here, for those guys. And I think they really enjoy having some light shed on all the work that they've put in, and I think they enjoy the interview process, and I know I do too. And we were having a conversation after that 7-on-7 tournament last week, our coaches, about how we really appreciate what you guys do. And I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, but we hope you keep doing it, and you're welcome here anytime.
I'll see you week 5.
Week 5, yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in this afternoon. Yellow Jacket football soon. It won't be long.
Won't be. I'm excited.
Get the lights on.
Yeah.
John C. Buck coming soon. Coach, Westlake on the 21st. get after it, get out of there healthy,
That's the plan.
and get ready for Jamboree, get ready for week 1, have a little fun.
Less than a month away.
There you go. Thank you, my
Thank you,
friend.
man. Appreciate it.